The problem wasn't just Derrick Henry sitting out at the end of the game. What really blew up came afterward, when John Harbaugh grabbed the microphone and explained his decision like it was no big deal. In that moment, it was clear the mistake wasn't an accident. It was a choice. And that's exactly what made so many fans furious. When a coach admits afterward that he would have done things differently, says it was a plan, and treats a preventable loss with cold detachment, the message hits hard. It feels like everyone who watched the game suffered the comeback and believed until the very last second wasn't taken into account at all. Stick around until the end, because when you connect his words with what actually happened on the field, you'll see exactly why it felt like a direct slap in the face to fans who never give up on this team. You know that moment when someone makes a clear mistake, everything goes wrong, and then says, "Looking back, I would have done it differently." That's exactly what John Harbaugh did. He practically confirmed he knew Derrick Henry should have been on the field for the final drive, yet he chose not to play him. For anyone watching, it felt like admitting the mistake without truly taking responsibility for it. The issue isn't just a mistake itself, because mistakes happen. The problem is how it's explained afterward. When the coach says he didn't like the drive and would have preferred to start with Henry, he's basically saying the right decision was clear, but it was ignored. Fans watching, feeling every play, have every reason to feel like logic itself was left on the sidelines. And here's a heavier feeling. It seems like the people who follow this team don't really matter in that moment. His words give the impression that winning the game was secondary to sticking to a predefined plan. For anyone who invests time, emotion, and trust, hearing that after a painful comeback feels like a total disrespect to the intelligence of those watching it all unfold. That frustration only grows when you realize this explanation isn't isolated. It points to a bigger problem. The insistence on a rotation plan that completely ignored what the game itself was demanding at that critical moment. When Harbaugh says he was just following the rotation, it immediately feels disconnected from what was happening on the field, because anyone watching saw a completely different game. They saw Derrick Henry dominating the runs, controlling the pace, demanding respect, while the team just needed to do the basics to secure the win. Yet the decision was to act like nothing was off script. That explanation sent a message that the actual game didn't matter as much as the plan drawn up beforehand. The score was tight, the lead melting away, the offense losing steam, and yet the response was to keep rotating players, as if it was a neutral situation. For fans watching, it feels like the moment was ignored, as if context held no weight at all. What's most irritating is that it was a plan becomes a comfortable, almost automatic phrase, used to justify anything after the fact. It turns an active choice into something that seems inevitable when clearly it wasn't. The game was calling for a different decision, practically screaming for it, and yet it was ignored. And when that explanation comes right after such a big loss, it doesn't soothe anyone. On the contrary, it sets the stage for something even more frustrating. Because soon after, the coach admits he would have preferred a different choice. And then it becomes impossible to pretend that sticking to plan was really the best option. When Harbaugh says post-game that he would have preferred Derrick Henry starting the final drive, it doesn't come across as mature reflection or learning. It comes across as the most frustrating confirmation possible that the right decision was obvious while the game was still happening. Fans watching didn't need a press conference to see it. The read was simple, direct, and clear on the field. His words hurt because they remove any defense. It wasn't a lack of information, confusion, or something unpredictable. The right move was there the whole time. And when that admission comes after the loss, it turns a tactical mistake into something far heavier emotionally. For fans living every snap, hearing this afterward only amplifies the anger. Because it's not just losing a game, it's knowing it was lost even though the obvious solution was right there. The feeling is helplessness, as if the negative outcome was chosen, not forced upon them. And that perception doesn't stop there. On the contrary, it pushes the conversation even deeper, because if the right decision was clear afterward, then the problem wasn't reading the game. It was about priorities. And that leads straight into the next point.
All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video, but before we continue, I noticed you haven't left a like yet. It's really important because it helps YouTube keep showing you my content so I can keep bringing you the best news about the Baltimore Ravens. So go ahead and hit that like button. It's free and it really helps. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
Even if he doesn't say it outright, Harbaugh makes it clear that following the rotation was more important than reacting to the moment. Even with Derrick Henry dominating and the offense needing only to control the clock, the choice was to stick to the original plan, ignoring completely what was unfolding on the field. That sends a terrible message. It shows that flexibility, the very quality you expect from an experienced coach, simply didn't appear when it was needed most. Football, especially in the final minutes, demands rapid adaptation, reading the scenario, and courage to change the plan. For fans watching, it feels like the team wasn't put in the best possible position to win. Winning became a secondary concern, while sticking to the scheme became absolute. And when that happens, a loss stops feeling like bad luck and starts feeling like the direct result of the choices made. That impression weighs even more, because the public explanation reinforces it. There was no urgency, no adjustment, no reaction while there was still time. And when the coach's own word confirmed that, trust starts to erode in a dangerous way. In the end, the biggest problem isn't just Derrick Henry sitting out at a crucial moment. What really bothers fans is how John Harbaugh chose to explain everything afterward with a cold, technical, and detached speech that ignores the emotional reality of the game. His words don't convey urgency, frustration, or the real weight of a loss that slipped away due to the coaching decisions themselves. For anyone who followed every play, every third down, every ticking second on the clock, hearing that explanation feels like all that suffering didn't matter. It feels like the collapse was treated like an administrative detail, almost routine, when in reality it was a blow to a season already hanging by a thread. That posture creates a heavy sense of disconnection. It's as if the people making decisions are living in a different reality from the fans watching, supporting, suffering, and carrying the outcome beyond Sunday. His words don't acknowledge, don't recognize impact, and don't take responsibility for the emotional weight of the mistake. And that's exactly why his explanation comes across as disrespect. Not because of overt arrogance, but because of coldness. When a mistake this clear is treated lightly in words, the message is simple and harsh. The people who care most about the outcome weren't being considered in that moment. This situation sends a clear message. The problem wasn't just a bad decision on the field. It was how it was handled afterward. When the explanation ignores the game's context, admits the mistake too late, and makes it feel like sticking to the plan mattered more than winning, the impact goes far beyond that single loss. It affects trust, in-game decision-making, and, most importantly, the relationship between those who decide and those who follow the team week after week. What remains is the nagging doubt about how critical decisions are being prioritized when the game gets tight. This was a confusing scenario. It wasn't a choice with no alternatives, and the coach's own words made that obvious. That's where frustration grows, because this error doesn't feel like a lack of options. It feels like a deliberate choice to ignore the best one. Now I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments on what you think about Harbaugh's words, and whether you felt they were truly disrespectful after everything that happened on the field. This debate doesn't end here, because decisions like this shape the present and the future of the team, and the conversation needs to continue until real answers come.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself.